Welcome to the Fearfully and Wonderfully Me podcast, a podcast designed to help you increase your influence, develop your leadership, and maximize your results. Hello, everyone. Thanks for stopping by the Fearfully and Wonderfully Me podcast. Today's episode is all about year-end review, right? This podcast is coming out. We've just got a little over a week, about 10 days to go before the end of the year. And I did this topic last year, but I wanted to bring it up again because it is such a powerful um, exercise to go through. That is something I do um, at least at the end of every year, just kind of an end of year review. And I might do a kind of a mini review as the seasons change, perhaps even quarterly, or, I don't necessarily just do it once a year, but it is absolutely powerful to do a year end review. And so I'm going to give you three powerful questions for this year end review, this end of year review, and kind of walk you through my process and what that looks like. And, you might have a different process, and that's okay. Take what works for you, add to it if you need to, subtract from it if you need to, but just sharing some of the things that help me be intentional. So, first thing that I like to do when I talk about year in review is s- after Christmas, dig out my calendar, sit down, maybe with a cup of coffee in the quiet time of the morning when everybody else is asleep, or maybe I'm home by myself, or sometime when I know I've got a little bit of a block of time where I'm uninterrupted. And just sit down and take a peek at the calendar for this year, right? Looking back at the calendar for 2022 and look at the things that are on that calendar. And do I feel like I spent my time wisely? Do I feel like I steward is that that's a hard word to say. Stewarded was I a good steward with my time and energy based on the activities, and they filled my calendar and my weeks and my days and my moments? Are those the things that brought the greatest return? Are they the things that brought me the joy in the moment? Are they the things that helped move me forward? Are they the things that helped me add value to others? So these are some, questions. Your questions for yourself might be a little bit different, but I think everyone would benefit from taking just a good, honest look at their calendar and go, okay, how do I feel about this? Did I spend too much time doing this? Did I spend enough time doing this? Based on my priorities, right? I talk a lot about priorities, but I'm really talking about the essence of intentional living. So I like to do that. You might could drill down week by week if you have enough time to do that, or maybe you need to do it month by month. Maybe you need to do it day by day and go, what did I do right this day? What would I have done differently? What would I have changed? Um, and then as we go into the new year, that gives you a great insight to think about, what do I need to do different? So here are the questions. And Mac and I do this together. I like to do it kind of on an individual level. And then we actually sit down together, generally after Christmas, before New Year's. It's usually Mexican. We usually go out to eat and sit down at one of our favorite Mexican restaurants, and we have this discussion. And sometimes it's usually not a long discussion, because there again, we are pretty intentional about thinking, being mindful of this throughout the year. But we do hit on a couple of things that we need to do or change or think about. So the first really powerful question to ask yourself as you do this kind of year in review is, what do I need to stop doing next year in 2023? What do I need to stop doing? What on my calendar, in my week, in my life do I need to get rid of? And that could be a commitment to serve on a volunteer committee. It might be um, to stop a habit that you're feeling is not healthy. It might be, whatever it is. It might be to end a toxic relationship, or to, set some boundaries there. Um, Brainstorm here. And I like to keep it simple. I like to just, you might come up with quite a lot of ideas here. You might come up with a whole laundry list of things you want to stop doing. And that's okay. But I just want you to pick one for the purpose of this exercise to focus on. Because here's the thing, if you have more than three priorities, you don't really have any priorities. And I'm going to give you the other two. So I don't want you to end up with a laundry list of things you're like, okay, now I need to stop doing this, stop doing this, stop doing this, start doing this, do this, don't do this, and so what happens is you'll get overwhelmed and you won't accomplish any of it. So once you brainstorm as much or as little as you want on the things that you need to stop doing next year, and then pick one. Just pick one, just one to focus on. And maybe that's just one to focus on in the month of January, the first quarter of 2023. And then you can pick another one, right? You've already brainstormed on your list. You'll have the list. Pick one to focus on in the first month of the first quarter. Give yourself a dedicated block of time to remove that from your life, however long that takes. It might, especially if it's a time commitment that you've committed to other people or a committee or you've served on or something like that, you may have to work out that commitment. But don't take on another one. Don't replace that with something that doesn't fill you up, fill your tank up. Okay. So that's the first thing is what do I need to stop doing? Because here's the deal. When you stop doing it, whatever it is, you'll have more time, space, energy, or money, perhaps more resources to answer the next question. What do I need to start doing? What do I need to start doing in 2023? What would that look like? What's something I need to do more of, or what's something other that I need to take on? What else do I need to be doing? What's missing, right? Relative to what's moving me forward, or what's going to move me forward in the direction that I want to go, what do I need to start doing? What am I not doing that I know I should be doing? And how am I going to accomplish that? Where is that going to fit? Now, you've already freed up some time and resources because you stopped doing something, right? Now you have some extra time and resources or energy or space on your calendar to start doing that. So maybe that looks like, hey, I'm going to drop off of this volunteer committee, and that's going to free up 4 hours a month off of my schedule. Well, that gives me an hour a week, basically. I could exercise during that time, or I could read more and grow and develop my skills and my influence or my leadership, right? If you had an extra hour a week, I bet you could put that to some pretty valuable use. I mean, a whole extra hour in your week is a good chunk of time to develop yourself personally or professionally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, right? You might decide to take that extra hour in your week and go to church. And that's totally okay. You get to decide. But once you said no to something, you're like, okay, maybe this fit in the season I was in, but maybe it's time to let it go now. And so then you can ask yourself, what do I need to start doing with this new extra? Maybe it's extra sleep. Maybe you're not getting enough sleep, or you're not healthy, or you're not where you want to be in your relationships. So maybe that's a question to think about, right? These questions apply personally or professionally. They could be career, they could be family, they could be health and wellness goals, they could be balance, they could be spiritual life, personal development. It can be a wide encompassing area. You could absolutely think of more than one thing that you want to start doing next year, but there again, I'm going to encourage you to just pick one to focus on first. You can always pick up more later. You can always do more later, but I would just encourage you to pick one to begin with. And then here's the third question. What do I need to keep doing? When I look back at my calendar, what is serving me well? Does that does that change a little bit or maybe tweak it a little bit? Like, for example, I ran my most recent marathon. I ran in October, and I knew that it had been a hard year in terms of training, and that's good. That's rewarding. That's what I wanted. But I knew that physically I needed to back down from training running and make sure that I was working on strength and mobility and flexibility and some of the other dimensions of fitness, because the body benefits from a training cycle, and part of that training cycle is some rest, right? Doing something different or running a little bit less. And so that's okay. But what it looked like for me is I look at that and what do I need to keep doing is I need to, have my month or 2 months of less running and do a little more flexibility and stretching, do a little more strength training, right? Build back some of those muscles that I didn't focus on when I was focusing on running. But I'm going to keep exercising. That's my point. That's the thing is I look back and I go, "Oh, I'm going to keep exercising." It might look a little different going into the first couple weeks of the year, first month of the year, or as the season changes, I'll be ready to pick another marathon and start training again. But I'm not going to quit exercising. I just maybe need to tweak what I'm doing, how I'm doing it so that it serves me better in the season that I'm in. So when I look at that, like exercise is something that I will keep doing. It will look different as the seasons of life are different. And that's okay. But my point here is that's something that's working for me. It helps me stay healthy. That's something I'm going to keep doing, right? And so I'm just throwing out some examples of that. For example, I might say I'm going to keep doing this podcast because this is something that helps me add value to others. So this is serving me well in my goal of adding value to somebody else and being the river and sharing some of the things I've learned. So I'm going to keep doing this podcast. And sure, it's a time commitment, but I look back over my calendar and go, I need to keep doing this. This is something that I will continue to do. And then I look back and go, this is something that I need to decrease or minimize or remove completely. And that gives me the space to say, okay, what do I need to add? So there you go. The three powerful questions for your year in review. And I'm telling you, this is a very powerful process when you go through it. Brainstorm with somebody if that helps. Or just on your own with you and your calendar and an honest reflection of the things that filled you up and the things that drained you, right? And sometimes that's the only criteria you need is what drained me. When I look back over this year, what took away from my life? What took away from my energy in a negative way? And maybe I need to do less of that, right? What was toxic to me? Are there people, are there relationships that I just need to say, I love you, but I'm gonna miss you. But I need to move on. We're going a different direction. And sometimes that is the only criteria. Sometimes it's things that didn't bring you the greatest return or didn't turn out like you expected, didn't look like you expected. And so maybe that's the criteria you use. I can't tell you what that is, but you'll know. You'll know as you look back over your schedule. You're not, and if you're not a schedule person, you may not keep a calendar like I do, but I keep mine electronically. In fact, I've got several calendars. I have an online, well, they're all online, but I keep them online on Google Calendar, and then I can sync them all up. Like I can see Mac's calendar, and I can see my calendar personally, and then I've got a work calendar, and all of those kind of interlay on on top of each other. I got plenty of calendars, and I kind of use that as not just a calendar, but as a to-do list as well. But that's one of the things that helps me stay on track and helps me be intentional about not letting my time ooze away in ways that I don't want it to. So that really helps me with that. And there again, if you're not like a you know, super scheduled oriented calendar person like I am, you can still do this exercise. You don't actually have to have a calendar. Just look back honestly and go, oh, where did my time go? Now, you might need to think about that for a few more minutes if you don't have a calendar and it's harder to remember. But I guarantee you, as you look back, you'll think of things that you're like, oh, I didn't like that day because volunteered for Habitat for Humanity and I don't really like to build houses. And so that didn't help me that didn't serve me well. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing to volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. It just not might not be where you're called to give. And so it's okay to say no to those opportunities that don't fit in alignment with your highest and best use of your time, your energy, and your resources. So there again, three powerful questions. What do I need to stop doing? What do I need to start doing? What should I continue to do? Until next time.